As a young boy, I once thought of becoming an archaeologist in the classical way. Many years later, I found myself as full professor of media theories at Humboldt University in Berlin, and remembering this old passion, I thought I joined a group of so-called media archaeologists with colleagues like Erki Hutamo, who is a specialist on materialist media art, or Siegfried Zielinski, who researches the deep time of media histories. But we media archaeologists, we care about media as material artifact, not just as an immaterial user interface. So we open the black box and look into the materiality of media. And at Humboldt University, when I had the privilege of founding the new curriculum of media science, then I suddenly remembered most disciplines, academic, they have their teaching rooms, they have their libraries, and they have a third element, their artifact collections. Like classical archaeology has plaster casts of Greek sculptures, art history has printing or of photographic collections. Now, the new science of media needed an artifact collection as well, so we started to establish a collection of media technical artifacts, which is the Media Archaeological Fundus. Now, the artifacts which are assembled here are not just so-called dead media. The famous novelist Bruce Sterling once started the Dead Media Project. It's an internet project which assembles, until today, forgotten media from the past, because the media which have become successful are not only the ones which have been invented. Many interesting imaginary media have been forgotten because they were not successful in the public and economically. So there is the Dead Media project, but our understanding of archaeological media artifacts is more related to the present, in saying, for example, the digital media. Digital media have been there in 19th century already with telegraphy, which is dots and dashes. It's a binary code. It has been digital communication medium. Then later came radio and telephony. This is electrically analog media, wave-based media, and suddenly the digital returns, telegraphy returns within our wireless communication, where the radio waves are digitally coded. This reminds of telegraphy. And in order to make this more transparent for students and researchers, and even visiting artists sometimes, we have assembled, for example, an old telegraph apparatus to compare it to the early public home computers, like the famous Commodore 64. And to see how present the so-called dead media are, so to rescue old media from just being nostalgic items. That's the ambition of this media archaeological collections. And this is not only interesting for teaching, for students to research, especially because students are allowed to touch the objects, to make them work again, to repair them, if it goes wrong, sometimes even to destroy them. These are ways of approaching media technology which normally are not allowed in a technical museum. You are normally not allowed to touch the artifact, to set them under current again. And so you see in technical museums a dead TV set from the 1950s, but you have no idea how the image looked. And here we can restore or reanimate an old TV set and suddenly become an idea how a 625 line scan old black and white television looks. It becomes immediately clear this is so different from the pixel image, which is now the universal image standard in digital culture. And to make this experience, we need to have objects which can be operated. And even not only scholars and students come here to make that experience, but we have artists and writers in residence here who write about media in their materiality in the presence of the artifacts. It makes a difference if you sit alone in your office and write about media, or if you write and you have the medium present. And these artifacts here give a certain immediacy to reasoning aesthetically or theoretically or academically about technical media. So this is broadly the idea of this collection, which is not a passive collection but an active collection, because all the objects have to be activated. To make the experience of an old analog video is one thing which has been well researched by several video art history projects, but we here compare video, for example, the magnetic tape of old analog video next to the magnetophone, to how it comes from audio recording, the magnetic tape, and how the idea of registering signals goes across several media genres. So we are not collecting and assembling objects according to the old departments, which would be old radios, old televisions, audio techniques, visual techniques, but rather what are the media elements which go across to take the magnetic tape. It's relevant for magnetic audio recording, then it became important for three-dimensional image recording, although it's an audio technique, but then for early computer data storage as well. So suddenly media can be researched and become aware across the audiovisual divide which normally takes place in aesthetic media research. One of the core biases of research here and the appearance of these media archaeological fundus is what I call, and I found even printed once, what is instant theory, instant media theory. Instant mean not to separate theoretical construction and practical engineering, but to combine it immediately. When I am in touch with archaeological media artifacts, I am at the same time theoretically aware of the beauty of knowledge and the beauty of insight, even of philosophical aesthetic insight, which takes place when I have hands-on media. So the old separation between practical engineering and theoretical media thinking here converges into one, is entangled. That's the idea, to produce theoretical insight from being in touch with the medium itself. So there is no more the classical separation between writing about a medium and engineering a medium, but in a way it becomes writing the medium. And the medium becomes a co-author of theoretical thoughts. So it's like flashes of theoretical insight which spark from having hands-on media operations themselves. So what I call transitive media philosophy is a philosophy which does not just observe from a distance, which is the old meaning of theory, the distant observer, but on the contrary, to have theoretical insight from the moment of the media experience itself. When I start one of our old TV sets, for example, the beautiful Rembrandt TV set, which was the first TV set in former GDR, from the 1950s, suddenly we hear a sound, and it becomes clear that the old electronic vacuum tubes, they produce an image which has around 16 kilohertz per 25th second, and that is within the audible reach of our ears. So suddenly the image produces a sound, and from such a moment, when it happens, from the immediate presence of the medium, suddenly we think, for example, of Bill Viola's manifesto on video art, where he describes the video image as the sound of one-line scanning. And to say, rather paradoxically, that the video image is basically, in its essence, is a sound event. Now, this opens a different way of thinking about medium. There is film studies, video studies, who care about the content of video and television image. Communication studies does it. But here, in our epistemologically insight-driven media research, we care about the beauty of knowledge and associations which derive from the technical event itself. So it's less the cultural or communicational impact on the humans, but the event of technology itself, which can be discovered in its beauty of knowledge. It still needs the human to make this knowledge expressive. The experience is almost affective, but we humans, we turn it then into verbal expression to make it into an explicit argument, but the impulse comes from the medium itself. So we let medium be the co-agency of media knowledge. That's one of the core ideas and core experiences in this place. For my kind of research, this is related to a term which I call Technológos. We all know the term technology. This is the knowledge about techniques. But I take the word technology more literally, Technológos. That means what happens when the mind confronts matter, because every medium is an entanglement of mind and matter. It has been designed logically, like a circuit design or an electric circuitry or a computer program or an algorithm. This is designed logically by the human mind. But then, different from what the mind itself can do, if it becomes material event, if the circuit diagram becomes an electrical circuit in its materiality, then things happen where technology develops a kind of reason of its own. And this is what philosopher Hegel would call objectivations of the mind. Every technology is an objectivation of the individual or cultural mind. I refer to Hegel because, by coincidence, this media archaeological collection is housed in the former house of philosopher Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, who wrote, for example, the Phenomenology of Spirit in 1807. And at that very place, now the media archaeological objects are assembled, and Hegel helps us to think about technology in a different way. And that brings me to Technológos again. Man can think about technology. This is one thing. The other thing is when we let matter become active and reasonable itself, and the objectified mind is not just an externalization of the mind, it's an experiment of the mind and of reason of its own. Human can think, but if we delegate this thinking to material structures, then the mind operates in ways which are different from the human mind. The actual debate on artificial intelligence is a good case of this. So far, most discussions about artificial intelligence are very anthropocentric. How intelligence does it look for humans? This is very human related. My point of view would be more critical in a different way, in not focusing only on intelligence but on the artificial of artificial intelligence, whereas the human intelligence is chemically, organically embodied. The electrotechnical implementation of intelligence develops a logic of its own. Whenever we confront errors in artificial intelligence, that's the moment where this technical intelligence speaks its own language. And this is not just a mistake, but this is a chance to see different forms of reason, of intelligence. I would even enhance them to say it's interesting for humans to experience a different kind of intelligence, which in its alien phenomenology, like computer game specialist Ian Bogost once called it, this alien intelligence opens new horizons of thinking about intelligence, which are not just anthropocentric. So in a way, media technology or technologies and artifacts like we have them assembled here, they become an experimental laboratory for technical reason to unfold beyond the human mind. That's the almost scientific approach to technology on which my kind of instant and transitive media philosophy wants to focus. And the Media Archaeological Fundus is by no means an isolated place. It's part of an ensemble. It's the philosophy of the media science department here at Humboldt University that we take the presence of media in many ways. We have the artifacts, the technological artifacts here assembled, but we have as well the signal laboratory. The signal laboratory is more focused on signal processing, how it takes place with what we call digital media, whereas the Media Archaeological Fundus has a stronger focus on so-called analog media. But it's not to separate them, but to rethink the division between digital and analog media. In the signal laboratory, students learn how to come as close as possible. How does an algorithm, which we write down on paper, what happens if it's taking place and it unfolds as a real machine? Not in a machine, but as a machine. And then we become aware that even software is in the end hardware. It's about, like our colleague late Friedrich Kittler famously expressed, there is no software, it's all about voltage, binary voltage. It's a very material event. The computer is by far not a virtual medium, but it's the most physical medium one can think of. It's a delicate physical medium. And the artifacts in the Media Archaeological Fundus and the mathematics of programming in our signal laboratory, they are entangled. So they are twin laboratories. But this is not limited to those two places. We have a so-called media theater, which is called media theater because it's a place where the media themselves become the main actors. It's not the humans, and it's not traditional theater which is enhanced by video or other technologies, but the medium itself becomes the main actor on this stage. For media to show how they actually act, we need this space, which is called media theater. Very often humans cooperate or collaborate with media there, but we have an emphasis on media in the term media theater. So we have those three places which are extra to the traditional academic teaching rooms or lecture halls, because if the subject or object of teaching is technical media, we have to have places where students and researchers can actively experience media, technically, aesthetically, historically, functioning, non-functioning, techno-mathematically, which is a big challenge, because traditional media can still be collected in shelves, like we have it here in the Media Archaeological Fundus. The black box can be opened and you can see, you can reveal the operative truth of the media. You can even touch them. The haptic experience is very, very important. It becomes more difficult with techno-mathematical media, high-speed computing. You can still exhibit the computer as a physical medium, as an artifact, but the mathematics behind is difficult to make tangible, to make it a haptic experience, as an intellectual experience. So it becomes more tricky to how to make that present and aesthetically perceptible for students and others. But that's what I think fascinates so many media artists who call themselves, some of them call themselves media archaeologists as well, like Paul de Marinis, for example, that it must still be possible to have a media experience which is not reduced to aesthetic effects, but reveals the conditional possibility, the materialist, to put it almost in Marxist terms, the materialist basis of medium production. Like in France, the French media apparatus theory once widened cinema studies by not only concentrating on the screen, but concentrating on the projector, how it functions, what is predetermined by the mechanism of the room construction of a cinema hall, to include all the materialities of media. That is the archaeological approach, which we here have at least in these three places: Media Archaeological Fundus, Media Theater, and Signal Laboratory. In addition, we have functional rooms like our media studio and our media repair lab, where a volunteer helps students to learn how to construct their own medium. Like, for example, a theremin, this first electronic sound synthesizing device which operates touchless by just the human body interfering into a radio-like field and then producing different kind of tones and pitches. A lot of students who have never touched a soldering device learn suddenly that you can build a medium, a technical medium of your own. And this is a kind of media analysis which can never be done by reading texts or looking at illustrations only. That fascinates me as an ex-professor of media theory with this discipline of media science, that it's on the one hand related to the humanities, because we ask philosophical questions, we discuss it in texts and by words, but at the same time there is the materiality of medium, which makes it a scientific thing, a scientific object. And so we are in between the faculties. Media studies cannot be reduced to either the humanities or the sciences, but crosses both. We include mathematics, we include engineering, but the core is to ask philosophical questions. And to bring that together is the balance of teaching and researching media. And for that, we need those rooms where the media can be present, and not only passively present, but operatively present. They have to function in a way which makes them understandable. Now, I want to say that there is even new developments about these places which I have just described. It's very much university pragmatics. University administration always looks for rooms. Rooms are rare at universities and academies. Now, the idea of university room administration is to merge Signal Laboratory and Media Archaeological Fundus into one. I have described it as twins with different emphasis. Now, university wants to create a new room, so the Signal Laboratory is folded upon the Media Archaeological Fundus, practically meaning that the fundus is even more crowded now, not just with analog versus digital media, but with analog computer, for example. And it will be even more dense experience of rethinking the divide between analog and digital. It's difficult for a discipline like media science to defend the necessity that we need these laboratory spaces. And again, we come into the old traditional so-called two worlds of university, the divide between the humanities and the sciences. The humanities only need place for words and for text, and sciences need laboratories. The challenge here is to defend the idea that even within the humanities, science disciplines like media science need laboratories, because media technologies are real. They are not just textual and verbal. So it's interesting, the development, the room development of our special functional rooms here is part of the old idea of what is university. Can this divide between the cultural and the technical, or the mathematical and the textual and philological world, can this still be continued, or are there new realities which subvert this division? So even the most pragmatic and down-to-earth questions of defending rooms against administration is part of a bigger epistemological idea of what is university, how does it change its self-understanding, what are the places and rooms to defend. So it's a dynamic process actually taking place. The Media Archaeological Fundus, it never stands still, so to say, as much as the media technologies themselves dramatically develop into new forms. The Media Archaeological Fundus has to adapt as well to the transformation of the idea of university. So it's a symbolic and a real place at the same time.